Hadharan Kiyame. May I request him to kindly join us up on stage. And finally, may I invite Mr. Deepak Parekh, sir, to kindly join us up on stage. Thank you so very much, sir, for joining us.
Professor at Michigan State University, secondly back here again to manage a USAID-funded project. My role in this project is mainly to provide advice to the government, particularly working with agriculture sector lead ministries, supporting research and policy reforms. In that process, we help to design programs and strategies, but we conduct also research to advise the government as well as the private sector on how to improve productivity and catalyze agriculture transformation. Next. So next, I'll skip this one because of the limited time, but I would like to share with you a few statistics. I'll just highlight about food security in Tanzania and Africa, the challenges and the opportunities coming out of that for both trade and investment. And then I'll talk about the how Tanzania is positioning itself to become a food basket for Africa. Next. Next again. Okay, so as it was mentioned earlier, agriculture contributes about almost a third of Tanzania's GDP, but it also employs 2/3 of the population. Currently, the sector is really undergoing rapid transformation. I've been in this sector for many years. We see the rise, especially of medium-scale farms, and also revitalization of commercial farms, hand in hand with also transformation happening at smallholder farmers. For many years, the farm size has been about 2.3 hectares per farmer, but now we see farmers with over 5 hectares contributing almost 25%. And almost 42% of the total cultivated land now has moved into medium-scale farms. And as you all understand, it's the middle class that is really catalyst for transformation. Also, in the transformation, we see food becoming more purchased. So there's some degree of specialization, farmers growing horticulture and buying cereals from the market. But we also see value addition, particularly processing. In the past, there used to, for example, in cereals, to be multitude of hammer mills, but now they are disappearing with more kind of consolidation into medium and large processing plants. This is an opportunity for investment, particularly bringing the Indian technology to Tanzania. But we also see, I would say, food becoming more perishable, more consumption of fruits, consumption of vegetables. We see also consumption of protein, which also an opportunity, particularly for investment in poultry, as well as dairy and beef sector. Next. So this is just a snapshot of food insecurity in Tanzania. As you are aware, the triple impact of COVID-19 pandemic, the climate change, and the Russia-Ukrainian war has really exposed the vulnerability to Africa. So all these number of people that are food deficient, and you can see Tanzania is almost an island. Here I'm just focusing on East, Central, and Southern Africa, not here. So as you can see, 90 million people in this coming season will be food deficient. So this is a crisis, but is also an opportunity for the agricultural sector. And you can see the numbers by yourself. Next. As it was shared earlier about the common problem between Asia and Africa is also issue of stunting, and this is an opportunity. Tanzania has made quite a great progress in the last 20 years. I would say in the last 20 years, Tanzania has been food self-sufficient with a surplus of about 15 to 20%, of which is exported regionally and internationally, especially pulses. But however, I would call this a marginal surplus. So the current strategy is to make sure that Tanzania exceeds surplus over 50% so that it can trade comfortably. With this marginal surplus, we can only trade, I would say, cautiously. Next. These are what I've already mentioned, the ongoing crisis. Next, because of limited time. Next, please. Okay, so the new strategy is just building upon recent successes. For example, in the cropping season in 2021, on food commodities alone, Tanzania exported commodities worth almost $1.1 billion, more than the traditional export. When I talk about traditional export, I mean cashew nut, coffee, cotton, tea, and others. But these are mainly cereals, pulses, and oilseed. As you can see, maize. In fact, in this season, from the minister's speech this week, this season we've exported more than 400 tons of maize, rice more than 350,000 tons. So quite a rapid increase. Beans, in that season of almost 500,000 tons. So in total, almost 1.5 million tons of pulses, cereals, and oilseed. And you can see the destination market, and there's really an opportunity for investment, further investment in this sector. Next. So this is just to show Tanzania is one of the leading producers of cereals in the region. You can see almost a third country in Eastern and Southern Africa. Next. Okay, here we're talking about the dry beans. You can see on the far end, Tanzania is one of the leading producers with the yellow bar there, over 1.2 million tons of dry beans. Next. Tanzania is also a leader in production of pulses and oilseeds. Take, for example, of sesame. In 2017, Tanzania led globally in export of sesame. Also look at the sunflower, groundnut. Okay, soybean has started at a very low base, but we see increased production of soybean at smallholder farmers as well as of commercial farms. Next. Okay, in addition to export, there's also an opportunity for import substitution. Tanzania annually imports almost 1.2 million tons of wheat and edible oil worth over $270 million and sugar. But gradually, because of increased investment in the sector, you can see imports are decreasing in terms of volume as well as in terms of value. Next. So this is just a summary of the key food imports, which are wheat, edible oil, and sugar. One of the challenges for the edible oil is that the production of oilseed, besides being looked as one of the leading producers, but it cannot suffice the processing capacity. So there's an opportunity to invest in production. Next. So this is wheat. So what I'm going just to summarize, one of the current strategies is to improve agriculture productivity. Agriculture productivity in Tanzania is still very low. For cereals, it's about 1.2 tons per hectare, average, even for pulses as well as oilseed. So within the current strategy is at least by 2030, we should be able to double that productivity. And to double productivity, there are three elements that need to be addressed. First, use of improved seed. Second, use of fertilizer. With fertilizer, only 21% of farmers are using fertilizer. And out of almost 12 million hectares cultivated, is only 1.5 million hectares that fertilizer is applied. So there's an initiative to promote investment in fertilizer manufacturing. Tanzania has natural gas, about 52 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, which is about to be harnessed, and there's an opportunity to invest in manufacturing of ammonia. And this can be an opportunity also for investment here in Tanzania. So currently, as our project we are in the process to develop a pre-feasibility study to look at some of the options which are available, and we hope that sometimes later in the year we might convene an investment forum to potential investors in fertilizer manufacturing. In the past 10 years, there have been a number of companies that have shown interest to invest in this sector, but negotiations could not be concluded. There are a number of issues that needs to be addressed, and we are working with that in collaboration with the government to address them. So to make seed available, the government has really invested recently in research and also in state farms for seed multiplication. And currently we are developing a parallel initiative for the private sector, which will be targeting, how many minutes? Okay. Which will be targeting the medium-sized enterprises. So currently we are doing kind of a quick analysis to identify, to profile these farms. Based on the national survey, there are about 1,200 commercial farms. The average farm size is about 400 to 500 hectares. But what we discovered during the visit we had recently, most of these possess lands of 2,000 hectares. So they are underutilized. And in this strategy which we are developing, we are aiming at targeting 150 commercial farms. Each one will develop 1,000 hectares. So a combined of 300 or 150,000 hectares. The major product will be seed, to make sure that seed is available, both OPV and hybrid. But these farms can also produce directly cereals, pulses, and oilseed. With this initiative, we hope to increase, first of all, to double production of all these groups which I have highlighted earlier, and therefore an opportunity for export, increasing production in pulses, etc. So what are the opportunities for Indian investors? Opportunities, first, getting to partnership with these commercial farms. These are farmers that have over 20 years of experience. What they are lacking is capital and technology, so there's an opportunity for partnership. We looked at the issues of land tenure and security. Most of these have title deeds, which is an indication for security of land tenure. And we are developing a business model based on some of the successes that we see in the field. Currently, there's several farms which have really succeeded in producing a wide range of cereals, pulses, and oilseed. For example, they produce maize, they produce a variety of these legume crops. Okay, thank you very much. These farms need to invest in 5 areas. One is farm machinery, which is also an opportunity for bringing Indian technology in farm machinery and implements. In storage facilities, particularly bulky handling, such as silos, and and also in center pivot irrigation system. So this is a common practice that we see. So on the 4th of September, we'll be having a regional conference here, and we'll be sharing this, and we'll be sharing the link so you can log in and participate online to see all these opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We have a time regulation, so each speaker requests between 5 to 6 minutes only, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Dr. Nyange, for that brilliant presentation. I think we have a lot to say because there was just a lot of facts and data. So I want to invite everyone to introduce yourself and just mention any key insight you found from the presentation that you'd want to elaborate on.
I would actually request Vijay Bhai to ask those key questions since you're the most experienced on this subject to each of the speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This is a very vital issue, and unfortunately time is very less. So I will go one by one to all the speakers with a very pointed question. Let me start with Mr. Sood. Sir, you have seen the presentation, plus you know the ground reality and trade between India and Africa, and we are talking about food security. Which are the 2 or 3 important key points which you feel Africa should focus on to ensure food security and also to consider trade interests with India?
Thank you very much, Vijay. After this brilliant presentation,
Let me the volume, please, of the mic.
let me just highlight a few things which are very well known. African food situation and nutrition level shouldn't be where it is. It should be much better. It should be the food basket of the world. It has the potential. 65% of the global arable land, and of course, there are variations in agroclimatic zones. There are some recent climate change effects also. But within that, you have such a huge potential, and and yet the poverty levels are very high, malnutrition levels are very high. We have very low density of population, varying from about 80 to, the average is 49. And so I think we should go by the Indian experience, a lot of parallels. India is diverse in climate and weather and soil condition. Strong research is required, agricultural education and extension work, and investment in infrastructure. The limited one day, half a day that we have had here, I found that institutions need to be built for intervention in marketing and support. The farmers are left to be selling to the trade, and sometimes the benefit is not transmitted to them. And so there's a lot of information asymmetry. Even the stock markets are not very robust, what to speak of starting the commodity market. So there should be growth towards futures markets in commodities. And well, I think within this panel, and also Chandrasekhar, who couldn't attend, there is sufficient expertise to be able to at least give a blueprint, I think, under Mr. Vijay Sardara's leadership. And it should be possible to highlight the key points, the basic markers on which then the governments can develop the agenda. I am indeed very optimistic that in fact, in many commodities, all other countries in the world are coming to the limit of expansion. They have to be only growing vertically. And so here we have vast tracts of land unutilized, underutilized, and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you picked up a very important point of that market-related institutions we have to focus on. Coming back to Mr. Sethi, to you, what do you think that when it comes to the challenges on food security between Africa and India, which are the areas where there can be a possible collaboration between the two sides? One area which is picked up by Sudsab is that market and related institutions. What are your thoughts on focus areas?
If we look at what is that Africa lacks today, in terms of the food security, we always say there is a lot of land here in Africa to farm. Actually, it is not. Because when you go and cut those jungles and try to farm, there will be a whole lot of civil society, NGOs issues which will come up, and you will not be able to get that. So, African agriculture is very much like India, smallholders. And it will continue to be for a very long time. all the big companies who will try to take the land and grab the land here, it is not going to work out. And it has not worked out in the past also. So that means the infrastructure has to be very pointed. And if you see, Africa, like India, also imports a lot of carbs, whether it is wheat or rice or whatever. But why not, see, Bimal Bhai said, IPGA said, that grow more pulses for India. But I am saying not only for India, for yourself also. Discover the value of the sweet, amazingly tasting pulses. If you are fed up of pulses, then grow more soybean and import soybean instead of wheat and rice. So what would happen? You would be able to have just 20% or 18% of edible oil in soybean, but double of that, about 36, 38, or even 40% of proteins. And that is what is needed for people here, because then your stunting and all those nutritional security issues which are being talked about, that will be solved. If you see, Africa has got amazing potential of resources which can be grown. India has amazing resources of manpower and technology. But both the countries do not have surplus funding, but that the neighboring Middle East has. So a three-way tie-up where we could provide certain food to Middle East, both India and Africa together can actually make a world of its own and solve this problem. Plant-based foods has a solution to tomorrow's problem. If you will continue to consume meat, like meat consumption in India is rising, so is rising here. But if you will continue to consume that, you will need far more land for the fodder, which you don't have that land. So what would be the best possible solution? That you move the consumption, which is increasing for meat, towards plant-based, so that you are able to save a lot of resources and environmental impact. So India and Africa both should work together, creating the kind of infrastructure and right kind of ecosystem for increasing the consumption of plant-based foods.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think a very vital point that don't even look at exports, but also take care of nutritional security in your own land. That is also extremely vital. I'll come to now, Deepak, to you on the whole issue, because from a trade point of view, what you see that which are the areas where Indian trading community and Tanzanian or African trading community can cooperate, so that the challenges which is raised by Sood Saab and Sanjay, that productivity enhancement, so that there is a surplus, then you can do both domestic requirement and also trade. So what are the areas you feel one should intervene?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Vijayji. Pretty interesting question. So definitely our trade is one very important aspect, because cross-border trade, cross-continent trade are very important. And I believe for food security of not just Africa, but also India, East Africa is very important. Definitely you cannot cut trees and grow food, but definitely you can increase the productivity. And I believe the traders who are attending this conference here don't see it just an opportunity to buy tuar. See it a little bit more holistically and see an opportunity where we can invest in Africa, specifically Eastern Africa, for a long-term goal of achieving more productivity here. We are having only 2 institutions which are generating good type of seed for whole of Africa, of CGIAR, which is CIMIT and International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. Why can't our institutions, who are doing such a good research, ensure that those technologies are transferred here, and the trader community can play a very vital role in doing those investments. Just think about instead of growing 200,000 metric tons of tuar, if East Africa with enhanced productivity just by 30% start growing 300,000 tons, right? You will have a lot of value for India as well as for Africa. So that's one part. Secondly, we were talking about infrastructure and investment in infrastructure, and Sir said very interesting aspect about Middle East is having money, they can rope in. But at the same time, I believe that the Indian trader community who are all attending here, if I put all their net worth together, they are having sufficient money to make those investment in infrastructure here as well. What is the logic of 50% of cashew production in Western Africa going all the way to Vietnam and India, right? With so much of logistic cost, getting processed and then exported to US, right? a good cashew processing facility just costs you $500,000, right? Which is not a big amount of money. So I believe that there are a lot of areas of opportunity where trader industry, they start looking beyond, like the transactional aspect, doing trade with Africa, but taking a long-term approach. It would, I believe, like, give a lot of results. And there are thousands of hectares of land available in this part of the world, which can be cultivated with modern Indian technology. And we'll have a world which would be more food safe, secured, right? And that is what I would say. And I would also, like, I've been traveling to Africa for past at least a decade. So I always love quoting this thing whenever I speak in Africa. I'm an African because not I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Now, when we are talking about technology and investments, we have an interesting panelist, Dr. Mercy, here with us. She works in the area of research and development in Africa. Mercy, I will ask you that what you feel when it comes to the food security challenges in Africa. And we all know that there are two issues. One is the productivity, which you are, every speaker has mentioned and highlighted. What is happening in Africa to enhance, productivity? That is one. And second, what are the learnings which you are looking at India? Because we have made a lot of mistakes. We are now rectifying. Which are the areas where you feel that Indian scientific community and trading community should play a role with Africa? So two questions to you. What is happening at research level when it comes to increasing productivity? And where are the possible collaborations between India and Africa?
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Mercy Mari. I'm a food processing specialist and the chairperson for the Tanzania Association of Food Scientists and Technologists. And regarding the question number one, maybe before going directly to the question, I think the main problem that is happening here is our focus is on food as an agricultural commodity, but our focus on food as a basic human right, as a prerequisite to human health, is being left aside. So this all is bringing a lot of complication when it comes to food security and nutrition security. That's why you see a country have a surplus in terms of production, but then at the same time there is malnutrition levels that are happening as the data has been displayed. So regarding the research and what I feel like can be the addition when it comes to the productivity, I think the first thing is to have the data-driven production. When we are going to the production field, then it shouldn't be that just because there is this kind of crop growing here, it should be grown, but data-driven. What kind of nutrients are needed in India when it's coming to invest in Tanzania? What kind of crops will be informed from that angle? So I feel like data-driven agriculture is one of the areas, apart from other areas that have been spoken of, or technology and others. But another thing that I feel to be one of the very important areas is the area of food safety. We cannot talk of food security without talking about food safety. So this is the matter that is normally left out of the question. And we have a lot of food that is going to the bins just because it is not safe. With the current force and pressure on raising productivity, we are ending up with the food which is contaminated with different kind of contamination, starting from the chemicals, the pesticide, and all other forms. So the food safety aspect is one of the areas that I feel needs to be strengthened. And looking at India, India is one of the areas that I feel like they have a very strong food safety management systems. We have seen in terms of expertise, in terms of technology, but also in terms of government, the policies are in place when it comes to food safety. That is very different from when you come to Africa, because our food safety management systems are still very primitive. Looking at the Tanzania, for instance, at the moment, we still don't have the food safety policy in the government. So you see that kind of gap, even if you start with the exports and trade, and then you don't have the food safety policy in place, you find that you're having the gap. So I feel like that's another area where the strength can be to ensure that when we are now increasing the productivity, when the Indians are coming in and to invest, at the end of the day, we are having the food that is enough, but also it is safe for consumption, because it's not just the agricultural commodity, but it's the prerequisite for human health, and that gives us a second eye to consider it very closely.
Let me supplement what Dr. Mercy is saying. lately the largest number of SPS TBT notifications related to food quality and services are issued by East African bloc. It's amazing. Every week I monitor all the notifications issued by WTO member countries, and I can tell you lately in last 6 months, the maximum number of notifications emerged from Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya. This is a whole block of 5-6 countries. So it's not that the countries are like in primitive. They are changing laws and standards very rigorously. And if you are in trading interest, please monitor them. And they are aligning them with international norms. So it's no more a backward zone when it comes to food standards. So that one has to keep in mind. Now, may I request Catherine, from your point of view, would you like to add something to what should be done from food security point of view between India and Africa?
I think what I want to contribute is the part of investment. So how are we going to realize this import substitution? How are we going to supply this food to neighboring countries? 90 million people who are food insecure. We need to have an investment ecosystem that actually targets agriculture. Right now, there are loans that are available at the bank, but entrepreneurs or farmers are still not able to access this because the restrictions are still too high. 17%, going back down to 14% is still not enough, while other countries like India are more competitive in providing farmers the necessary credit they need to use the right seeds, have even like be able to clear land, enough land. Clearing just 1 acre of land, if you want to do it within 1 day, it might cost you up to $400. And if you don't have that amount of money, it will take you 3 months. And that's just a big bill to pay in order to be able to be more productive and be able to supply to more people. Another area of investment is the logistics part. If we're now moving to more perishable crops, as Dr. Nyange's presentation displayed, we need to also invest in cold technologies in order to make sure that the food actually arrives there in the quality that is required. Even if you're exporting it to another country, it still needs to be intact. So those are the areas that I think investors, Indian investors, local investors should look at, but also policymakers should ensure that there's an enabling environment in order to realize this ambitious goal.
I think in a very short time we have covered virtually every dimension. Yeah.
Half a point.
Yeah, please.
Well, I would just want to pinpoint one number and one comment. The number is that in terms of staples, not even to speak of protectional food or nutritional food, whole of Africa imports about half of its wheat and rice. And considering that several of the countries are growing very fast in the last 5 years. To take an example, the growth in Tanzania itself has been very remarkable in the last 5 years. 5 years they have added 40% of GDP, and from something like 45 to 85 billion dollars. So there is a strong income elasticity of demand for staples at the level at which the consumption in Africa is. Because one report I was reading that 1 in 5 Africans sleep hungry. So imagine the number of, the volume of demand which will go up by sheer increase in population and incomes, and it will be exponential. So I'm not talking here of meeting somebody else's demand. It is your own demand, and it's all there. We have, as I mentioned earlier, lived from ship to mouth, and not very long ago, that when I was growing up. And now we are occasional exporters. We used to be an export of wheat and or no export, and structural exporters of rice. So there's a lot to learn as you mentioned about food standards, even in the research path that we have gone through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sud sir. So let me conclude by just highlighting 2-3 important points here. Please do not, I'm requesting my African friends here, don't make the mistakes which we have made in India. What we have done is we have created food security by destroying our natural resources. Our soil health is going down, water bodies are going down, water table is going down. Learn from mistakes of others. Because definitely India is going to work on how to rectify the mistakes. But Africa is fortunate. You have not spoiled your natural resources. So design a food security policy while conserving natural resources. You will always have a market. India is going to be 1.66 billion by 2047. 70% edible oil we are importing. Today, pulses we are virtually hand to mouth. We don't have surplus, whatever government of India claims. And with every passing year, the way demand is changing, India will always have an import dependency when it comes to pulses. So Africa is a natural source where we can buy from. So Indian industries can invest because we don't have land in India. With rising population, demand for every crop will increase. So there is not going to be surplus land for anything. So when you are looking for natural resources, which is soil and water for food security, you have to look at Africa as a partnership game. So my request to the long-term players, fly-by-night operators, short-term traders, they have a different way of thinking. But those who really want to have a long-term game, think of partnership between India and Africa, because Africa itself is a market and India will remain a market. So this investment will not be waste. So think from that angle. Food security challenges are both sides. Both sides are going to increase the per capita income, means food challenges will increase. And that is my request. That is a great opportunity. This forum can be a great platform to build partnerships. Think it over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All the panelists, big round of applause. May I invite Mr. Suvir Purohit, Tasso Events, who has organized this entire event, to kindly help in acknowledging our speakers, along with Mr. Samir Ismail of AfriSan, please. Thank you. Mr. Samir Ismail, may I invite you on the stage? Suvir sir, may I invite you on the stage? Dilip ji, aap aiye, please. Thank you. We'll first acknowledge Ms. Catherine Misigaro for being our moderator. Please accept a small token. Come on, hello. Okay, first to Ms. Catherine Misigaro. Thank you very much. Big round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Miss Mercy Mari, please, may I invite you. Kindly accept a token of our appreciation. Miss Mercy Mari, thank you very, very much. May I invite Mr. David Nyange, please, to kindly accept a token of our appreciation. Thank you, Mr. David Nyange. Thank you. May I invite Mr. Israel Haduram Kiyame, please. You're not here, okay. May I invite Mr. Sanjay Sethi, please, to accept a token of our appreciation. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. May I invite Mr. Parikh, please, to kindly accept a token of appreciation. Thank you very much, Mr. Parikh, for standing in for Mr. Chandrasekhar. Thank you. And finally, may I invite the one and only Mr. Vijay Sardana, please to kindly accept a token of our appreciation. Thank you.